Okay, welcome to Optimized Dental Study Group. We are so excited to be back at it after taking a short break to kind of scale and build some new things within the company. But it also allowed us opportunity to kind of go out and meet some really great people in industry and get things rolling again to come up with some new ideas and some business strategies for the dental practices and building out wonderful opportunities to kind of grow and develop. And that's what we're about. So kind of our main motto is obviously building opportunities. And so bringing new people on to build this out is we're super grateful to have Mike on today. Mike is from Workforce. Are you vice president? Is that your official title?
That's what they call me. Yeah.
A VP. Wow, that's a big title. I like it. You should own that one. It's good. So Mike's a VP at Workforce, which is like a bit of a staffing agency. I guess it is a staffing agency, and they go and help practices on the dental side, amongst other industries. But on the dental side, they help dentists or other companies find staff for dental hygiene, administrative duties, RDAs too as well. And maybe soon in the future, associates. I've been trying to talk him into it. But there's definitely a lot that he knows, having been in the industry for a long time. So we really wanted to have him come on and talk to us a little bit about the strategizing temps and strategizing, building out business with temps and what that looks like, because I feel like it's a very underutilized portion of the business, and because dental is so far behind on so many things, I don't think people realize the opportunity that can arise from building out your practice with using temps for short-term solutions, and for also potentially looking for longer-term solutions with mat leaves and that kind of stuff that help us kind of retain our patient base. There's lots of good things that we're going to talk about today. So I would like to turn the time over to Mike. He's going to have a bit of a presentation, some housekeeping things are, if you guys have any questions and you don't want to pop on and ask, the chat will interact through chat. So you're more than welcome to use the chat function and we'll ask the question for you. The more questions, the better. Get the most out of this 30 to 40 minutes as you can, because that's all we're here for today. And again, this will be publicized on YouTube and you can look at it there as well. So I'll turn the time over to you, Mike, and we can chat about the awesome things that you guys are doing and bringing to the industry.
Great. Thanks, Teresa. Yeah, I mean, absolutely use the chat for anyone that's in here right now. If you have any questions at all, just fire them in there that have to do with staffing, even if it has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. There's so many things to talk about with dental staffing, but I'm going to really try to focus this on and give everyone some information and tools and just a general, idea of how you can utilize temp staffing differently than maybe you've used it in the past, and also try to keep you out of trouble as well. So, Workforce, we are a staffing agency in many industries. We have a big side of our company that does a lot of blue collar. We literally employ thousands of people a year on that side. We started our dental staffing division because there was just an unbelievable gap in the market and in how agencies were handling the whole experience. And as Teresa mentioned, the dental industry is really far behind when it comes to staffing. I think everybody in this room, if you've ever used an agency before, it's probably, you're lucky to get them on the phone. It's impossible to get any type of service out of them. And there's usually a one-person show that's in their basement. We call them basement agencies. And so we really kind of looked at it, and there's so many problems that have come from this model. And we kind of said, this is not the way it's supposed to be done. Let's do it properly. So I'm going to just share some slides here. We're going to touch on a few a few topics here. Let me just get it going here. Teresa, can you see that?
I sure can. Yeah.
Okay, great. So the three things that I really want to focus on this, again, we can diverge organically if we want. So why use temp staff? Okay, so we're going to talk about three different things. Number one, utilizing temporary staff to grow your practice. Number two, the liability issues that come with temp staff. And this is so important because so many dental offices are getting nailed right now for a very simple mistake. And I want to make sure that your office avoids this, because if the shit hits the fan, the dentist is going to look probably to the office manager and say, why were we doing that this way? This is your responsibility to know this information. And then three, payroll and cost implications for temp staff. So I'll go over, some stuff that maybe as an office manager you're not aware of when it comes to payroll costs, but also just a general overview of the costs of using a temp agency and what that looks like. So first question, why use temp staff? Okay, there's really, three big buckets of opportunity here that temp staff can be utilized for. I think the most common one that, most dental offices use temp staff for are probably sick days. And it's like, it's that, 3-alarm fire or whatever you want to call it, where it's like, oh my God, someone's sick, you're phoning agencies to try to make sure that that day doesn't cancel. Then you've got vacation days. That's pretty straightforward. Internal staff, they leave for vacation for a week. They're doing that at least twice 2 weeks per year. Those add up. And then what I like to call idle days. And those are those days where maybe your office has 4 operatories and there's one just sitting there empty, 3 days a week. Well, take that empty operatory and turn it into a revenue making machine, right? So when you add all these days up on a typical office, it's quite staggering. And these are probably conservative numbers. I don't, Teresa, you may, want to chime in here. Again, it really depends on the size of the office, but depending on, let's say you have 4, 5, 6 people in the office, you're going to get at least 15 sick days there. You're going to have vacation days of 40 days just with 3 hygienists and 1 assistant, let alone other people, front office manager, whatever it may be, even the dentist.
I think that might be underestimating the amount of vacation days for hygienists.
Yes.
10 days is like very conservative. I feel like they take longer holidays, at least the ones in most, like as they mature, they take more and more holidays. So I would say like probably 20 to 30 days a year, a minimum for hygienists.
For sure. And so when that hygienist is out, her chair, that operatory is sitting empty, and it adds up. And so this is a very conservative calculation here. There's 105 days where there is a chair sitting there that's not producing. So, really, how do you get these days back? Whether it's 100 or 200 days, how do you get them back? And there's really 3 ways that temp staff come into play on this. So the first one is the fire that I kind of talked about. These are the people your people that are phoning in sick, and you're about to cancel the day because you don't have someone. You're going to phone a temp agency to hopefully put out that fire. We right now have over a 50% fill rate for these last minute requests. So we're saving our clients half of those days that otherwise would be lost. The second thing are those vacation days. We encourage all of our clients to look at the calendar and look at when people are going on vacation, like those hygienists that we were talking about that are leaving, or even assistants for that matter. If the dentist really needs that assistant, like book and put your requests into a temp agency sooner. We're finding, Teresa, that our hygienists are booking 3 months in advance now. So when, if you want a high chance of filling those vacation days, like speak to us early and as soon as possible. And you should have this information. People are usually planning their vacations months in advance. So definitely get that in. The third one here on how to get ahead is something that we are calling proactive staffing. And we find that, especially, in the Alberta market, this is something that we have seen really good success with. So what this is, typically agencies are phoned to put out these fires, maybe fill some vacation days. But what they're doing is they're telling the agency, I need a temp tomorrow or next week for a week or whatnot. That's great. But the reality is you're now, going to a limited supply of candidates and their available dates. What we kind of figured out when we started this division 4 years ago is that there are a ton of hygienists out there that are looking to pick up extra shifts here and there, but they are specific days that they want to pick up. So what we're doing, and we did this with an office in Edmonton, and I'll just show you a really conservative number. Then I'll tell you what this office in Edmonton did. So we call it the 3-day challenge. Okay. So what we do is we tell our clients the availability of our hygienist pool, and then they book production or days around that availability. So you're guaranteeing an operator for that chair for that day, because this person is saying, I am available on the 22nd of this month, or next week for 2 days. And so when we send out this availability to your clients, the sophisticated offices that really understand proactive staffing are all over this. And we have some huge whales that just gobble up all of these dates as soon as we throw them out, especially in smaller markets. Because the reality with a smaller market like Edmonton is that the pool of workers is smaller. So the chances of putting out that last minute fire are harder. It's harder to put out a fire because you're dealing with a smaller pool of people. So the only way to get ahead in a smaller market is by planning ahead for those vacation days and using proactive staffing, which is more of a bulletproof way of creating days of production. So this example here, if you take a hygienist just 3 days a month, so if we send out 10 dates to your office of availability of our pools, just pick 3 of them, make sure that you've got an open operatory for that day, and then get on the phone and book a whole day of production. Average 8-hour day, approximately $1,800 in revenue. Teresa, would you say this is somewhat high, low, medium? Is it right in the sweet spot?
It just depends on the practice, but I feel like it's pretty relative. I think it's a good benchmark. I don't think it's like aggressive, and I don't think it's super conservative. So
okay, perfect. So just those 3 days, you're going to produce $5,400, and times that by 12 is $64,000. You're going to create an extra production for your office if you just utilize temp staff 3 days a week. We had an office in Edmonton do this last year, and they used us 4 times this every month, and just a bit more, to be honest with you. And they produced just under $300,000 in extra revenue utilizing this approach. They had an extra operatory. We kept throwing them available dates of our hygienist pool, and they had such a big backlog of patients that they just kept gobbling up the dates. So, there are things that are required to take advantage of the proactive staffing. You have to have patients. You got to have a backlog of patients that are there that you can phone. You've got to have a wicked front office, manager that's really great at booking and calling patients in, or tying that in, I guess, with a recall system. And you need an operator, which is where we come in, which is the staff, right? So
yeah, I think this is like what we teach in our office manager training. One of the things we teach in our office manager training course is very much this projection and like how to maximize. We're so many times we're working with clinics either through the office manager training program or with our consulting or training in office support. And we run into this where they're like, I'm capped. This is as much as we could produce. And I'm just like, oh no, like we have room to grow here. And it's just a matter of like looking at certain things. So like if someone's interested in doing this, one way that I could suggest they kind of look further is to look at how many people are overdue in their hygiene list, and going back, not just if they're running Recall Max or they're running Care or whatever, that's just up to 24 months, but you go back up to 36 months because of COVID, and you call patients and you get on the phone and you build up that patient demand doing that. And then you can build up open days and you just open them up, and guess what? They fill up because you've had, you booked out now 3 or 4 months, like you said, and all of a sudden there's nowhere for them to go. And then again, if you're building a periodontal program, they're going to be coming back every 3 and 4 months. If you're doing your AAP classification and building out a strong perio program, then you're going to be able to like amplify that and duplicate it. And it just starts to snowball to the point where now you just need these providers all the time. And then you can look at hiring someone full time. The idea is for temping is to use it in a way that you can grow it, but you don't have to necessarily stick with it long term if you're just growing up to a certain capacity point. And then you hire, either you can do recruitment through you guys, I know as well, but you can hire an operator, and then guess what? You just start the whole process over again, get that operator max capacity, and then grow another chair. And you just keep recycling it, that whole momentum, and you just keep your foot on the gas. It's a really great strategy to build out a better business practice and be in control of your growth versus like what you said before is like constantly putting out fires. We just call that chaos management. It's like that's all your job is, chaos management, filling holes and doing that. That's not what you want. You want to be on the proactive side. It's way more fun to be on the proactive side than it is to be on the reactive side.
You got it. And you're led right into, my next slide, which is, another reason why people use temp staff in every other industry on planet Earth is to bridge that gap between, someone 1 day a week or 3 days a month, whatever, something minimal that you would have almost no chance of hiring. Like you can't put an ad up and say, hey, I'm looking for somebody 3 days a month. You're not going to attract anybody to that ad. So you use temp staff to build that up to 3 days a month, to 3 days, 1 day a week, and then 2 days a week, then 3 days a week, then all of a sudden, boom, full time. You're now able to hire somebody, and then you redo this process again, right? Until your office is just completely maxed out on its ability to produce, right?
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of not hiring like 50 1 day a week people, because it doesn't add very much value to the continuity of care. It doesn't add very much value to the practice, having so many people, so many different providers all the time. If you can build out with a temp, something consistent, like you said, a proactive temp, I'm going to book you for the next 6 whatever weeks, and we're going to do this until we get, 3 days a week, or full-time in hygiene is probably 3 or 4 days a week. They don't typically work more than that. But if you can get them to like a full-time, 4 days a week, and then you can hire someone for a 4 day a week spot, I like that idea a lot better as a business owner, just for continuity of care, for having less staff in the practice. And not that there isn't some value in having a bit of part-time staff, because they're a little bit more flexible too, but it is nice to have full-time staff that are going to stay in the practice long-term and are going to add continued value, and being able to participate just differently. I feel like not casual staff, but like 1 day a week staff isn't quite as devoted to the entire team because they're only there 1 day a week. The more they're there, the better it tends to be for the culture of the practice. So if you can use temping to get you there, that's best, right? And let's be real, like a lot of hygienists, they want to be in one practice. They don't want to have to drive to 3 different practices to get their hours. Although there are a few that like to do that. So not all of them.
We call it the gig economy, and it is, a growing segment of the population. I mean, as the younger generation come up, they definitely are less interested in commitment. And
that is a very political way to put that. Less interested in commitment.
They enjoy flexibility. I mean, it is a very small segment of the dental industry, but in other industries, it's a much bigger one. But people are almost allergic to a 4-day-a-week commitment because they want at a whim's notice to go to Thailand or wherever, right? And that's just part of what's happening, right? With the workforce, no pun intended.
Yeah. So, well, I think it's very accurate. And just from what we're saying, I feel like though it was a really crazy, like crazier than normal, probably, 6 months ago. I felt like I was pulling my hair out with what was happening in the staffing industry. I feel like it's calmed down a little bit.
Yeah.
Not quite as unpredictable or unreliable, like the people in the staffing aren't quite as unreliable, but let me tell you, it can be a total nightmare, and it seems to go in waves. So we'll have like complete and total drought of like reliable workers, and then all of a sudden we have a ton of people. But if your business isn't ready to take advantage of it when there's a ton of people, then it's taking advantage when your business is ready and it's on the dipping point. I mean, it can be a miserable experience. So this is like a good resource to kind of think through, but with thought process and with a plan, like a game, an action plan to make sure that this is going to be where you want to end up, right? You can I think going into this blindly isn't helpful for anyone, but this is great.
For sure. And that kind of segues me into the next thing, which is, liability issues, right? And doing it, you mentioned doing it with plan properly, right? You don't want to get caught offside. And everyone probably is asking, what do you mean offside? Well, one of the big reasons we started this dental division is that when we looked into who was providing temp staff, they were all basement agencies, these one-person shows in the basement, and not one temp agency in the entire country of Canada was directly employing the temps that they were sending out. They were treating them as contractors. And I can't stress it enough. Temp workers in Canada and almost all of the United States, because we're there too, are absolutely not considered contractors. They don't meet the definition of a contractor. They're like there's sport control tests, and the CDHA website has this great thing. If you put in CDHA employee versus contractor, there's a whole page that comes up that talks about it. But I'll give you the most obvious control test. And by the way, if you fail any of the control tests, you have to be classified as an employee. But one of them is, do you bring your own equipment? And in the dental industry, this includes the chair the patient sits in because it's specialized. So I don't see any temp rolling in with the big chair and popping it down, right? So
yeah, I mean, I haven't yet to see that. I've seen some weird things in dental, but that is not on my list of things that I have seen.
So, and I've heard every story, you can imagine. Well, the hygienist is incorporated. That's great. She's not a contractor. It doesn't matter if you started your own business, you're incorporated. There are very well-defined control tests that are in place by the CRA. And one of the examples I found when we started this, I found a dentist, and there's an article, a blog on our website about this, and he used this hygienist, paid her as a contractor for nearly, I think, 6 or 7 months, and obviously did not deduct her income tax, and didn't, as an employer, which we're going to get into in a second, pay their employer contributions. The girl ended up leaving the country, going back to Switzerland or wherever she was from, and CRA, on their yearly check was like, whoa, we haven't seen any taxes from Susie here. They went try to find Susie. Susie's gone. Well, they found the paper trail because they went into her bank account. They looked at these checks. They said, oh, it's Dr. Smith. They knocked on Dr. Smith's office, and they went through the control tests, and they basically said, you should have known better. So, by the way, we can't find Susie. We can't collect her income tax, which you were supposed to take off her paycheck. So you're going to owe us that. And you owe us the employer payroll contributions. And we're going to fine you because you should have known better. This is happening all across the country right now, every week. Every week, we sign up dozens of offices every month. And I hear it almost every week. Why are you signing up? We're getting a 3-year audit right now from CRA because they're looking at our temp usage, and I heard you guys, do it a different way. That's why we're phoning you. So if you use a temp 1 day, 100 days a year, it doesn't matter. You're offside, and you're exposing your practice to a world of hurt because the cost of the audit is going to be insane. So biggest takeaway I want to hammer in on this presentation to everybody is temp workers need to be paid as an employee. They have to be directly employed by the office itself or the agency. The good news with us is that we're the only agency in the entire country that does that. So it takes off all of that administrative burden, which is significant, which we'll also touch on. I really want to just talk about those payroll costs because there's so many people that don't understand what payroll burden is or payroll taxes are. A lot of people, they don't need to know this stuff because they're non-accountant. They're the office manager, supposed to run the office. But I want to just show you what these taxes add up to in Alberta. Okay, so these are examples of an RDA receptionist, hygienist. These are their base hourly rates. People think, oh, I hired a hygienist for $60 an hour. That's the cost of that person, and I just take her 8-hour day times by 60, and oh yeah, the cost was $480, right? No. There's vacation pay that needs to be paid out. There's stat holiday pay of 4%. There's WCB, there's CPP, there's EI. Let alone, we haven't even talked about any type of other benefit program that your office offers. In Alberta, this totals approximately 16.3%. Some of these numbers, the CPP and EI, fluctuate a bit, but this is all within, 0.5% or percent. So that $60 hygienist, as you see on the bottom there, it actually is costing $69, just under $70 an hour. And a lot of people are not aware of this. So I just really wanted to touch base on these payroll taxes so people understand, when they see our pricing, they see this, right? Because we bill back these costs, and they go, well, why are you billing me back? We say, hold on, calm down. These are the same taxes that you're paying on your full-time person that's sick today or that is on vacation. So we're not making there's no money made on this. This is the government. This is employer costs on top of those wages. Okay. Now I'm going to segue into just some general costs that everybody should be really conscious of when using a temp agency. Okay. So we talked about, the employee versus contractor and making sure that that person is employed for that day by the office or the agency. So if you don't use us, that's fine. I love your business. But if you don't use us, you got to put them on your payroll. So there's administration time there. And We work with all of the big DSOs across the country now, and literally hundreds of independent offices. And we ask, especially the DSOs, like, what is it costing you to bring on a temp through the old model for just that day? And they said it's unbelievable. It's a minimum 2 hours of time. From the time the temp comes in the door, they have to collect their tax forms, their direct deposit information. They then have to put them into their payroll system. It's got to go to corporate. They've got to be paid. And then at the end of it, to get them off their sheets as a liability, because if you keep them on there, they are still technically an employee. They have to extinguish them. They have to do an ROE and issue a T4. So that administration time for a temp is a solid 2 hours. Okay.
And if you're doing it, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I think if you're doing it in a small practice, I would venture to say it probably takes you a little bit longer than that, because that's not your only job. Whereas like in corporate dentistry, like there's literally someone who just does this and it takes them 2 hours. But if you are doing this and trying to be your office manager and trying to, get pulled away from the desk, I guarantee you it would take you the better part of a day to accomplish that task. So like get it all done. And if you even got to get it finished in a single day, it's a lot. There's a lot that goes on.
It's crazy. And the fact that this practice of these basement agencies has been going on for so long in this dental industry, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry, is mind-melting to me that no one's come here and figured this out. And the funny thing is, before we started it, I met with the guys over at one of the big DSOs, and I told him what we were doing, and he said, as soon as you get going, you phone me. As soon as you get going, this is killing us right now as far as the admin time. Because they know that they have to put the people in the payroll because they've been audited gazillion times and they were tired of it. They couldn't do it. So again, here's just kind of a breakdown. And also one other thing I heard, and I'd love to know if other people are experiencing this too, but I talked to one office and they said, oh, for us to add someone to our QuickBooks payroll or some payroll program, it was $100 per record just to add somebody on and extinguish them, like do the T4, ROE for one person on and off. So, on top of the time it takes you, apparently some of these, independent offices that are using their own payroll programs, it's costing them per employee to register them in the system. So
it does, because you pay for so many employees, and then you have to like go to different brackets in some of the payroll programs. So right. Like some of the payroll programs are like you get up to 20 employees, up to 30, and it's a different subscription level for each bracket. So okay. if you have a different temp, maybe you have 50 temps in a year, right? Yeah. Then that puts you up into that next subscription bracket, which you don't get a choice to go back down until your ROEs are run or your T4s are completed, because they stay remaining on your payroll.
Yeah, you got it. So I wanted to break down this just again so people can digest this on an hourly basis, because temp agencies in every part of the world, when they quote a company for providing an admin assistant or whatever it may be, in our world, dental assistants, hygienists, they always just quote an hourly rate. And the difference with the basement agents is they don't quote an hourly rate because they don't employ anybody. All they want is their placement fee, which is like they drop them on your doorstep and they say, you figure it out. So if you just take the admin costs on a conservative 2 hours at $30 an hour, $60 a day on an area, it's $7.50. Okay. The next piece of the costs was hostage pay. This is something we've coined, and we found it like almost in every part of the country, especially in Alberta. Alberta's probably the worst.
I'm dead right now. This you need to put like a pair of loops on that guy, and that is every dentist in Alberta right now. Like, just you need to get some loops on that tied up guy. Is so bad right now.
Maybe I'll throw it into one of these AI programs and tell them to generate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what this hostage pay is really it's that over and above market hourly wage that these temps are demanding for their service. And part of me, I kind of get it, because you have to keep in mind that under the old model, when you were temping, if you temped at 50 offices, half of them are probably going to understand that they need to employ that person for the day. So they're going through a headache. It's like a pain in the ass tax, right? So they're filling out paperwork for those 25 offices. And guess what they're doing at the end of the year? They're collecting 25 T4s for that office. And then the other 25 offices that don't pay them, they're just cutting them a check. They're having to go and do the calculation, do the deductions, and submit them to CRA, or they're going to get audited, which has happened many times as well. So what they're doing in almost every jurisdiction in the country is, if the market wage for hygienists right now in Alberta is $60 an hour, we're finding it's regularly like up to $10 per hour more that temps are requesting, and it adds up, right? So
we are seeing higher numbers than that now, and it's interesting because I've had 2 hygienists reach out to me recently when I made a post for hiring for a full-time position at a practice. And they reached out to me saying, "Oh, I'm not looking for full-time, but if you need locum or if you need temping, I'll do it at this wage." And they threw out this number, and I was just flabbergasted. I was like, "No, thanks. I would rather not have a hygienist than pay you that." And it was really very used car sales. It's kind of an aggressive situation. And I think people get not tricked into it, I guess, just kind of like you said, hostage-y. It's just they're it's not great.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So that's the hostage pay to be considered about. And also there's a real a secondary problem here, is that when your internal full-time staff find out that you're willing to pay a temp $10, $15 more an hour, guess who's got their hand out next? And guess how much resentment that is built, and how much wage pressure is pushed up on your internal staff. I beg all the dentists together and just say, stop. Stop this insanity. It's spinning out of control. It shouldn't be this way. So again, keep that in mind. So the next cost is just the placement fee itself, right? And typically, around the country, we're finding that average placement fee, again, I call it a babysitting booking fee, because there's dropping the babysitter off, and then you got to hopefully figure it out. $50, $60 on an 8-hour day, again, $750. So when you add all this stuff up, you've got to really look at the hard costs. So of call it 20. Everyone's like, oh, I'm only paying $50 or $60 for this placement fee. No. Add the hostage pay, add all the resentment, the wage pressure that's building in your office, the administration time, the headaches, all of this stuff. And you're really getting no service, to be honest with you. They're not doing anything for you. And so it's coming to about $20 an hour. So when you add it all up on those wages with those payroll taxes, you're looking at an all-in number in this vicinity, right? When you're using the basement aid. These are just hard costs. We're not even talking about the other stuff, the intangibles. And the good news is, and I don't want to date this video, but we are cheaper than this. We can save you money on the $20 an hour, okay? But more importantly, we're going to avoid the hostage pay, that resentment, the wage pressure, the administration time, the opportunity costs on that alone, right? These things are all the intangibles that we call them, right? And the opportunity cost is what I'm talking about here is your time, right? Where is your time? What were you hired to do? You were hired to run the office. You were hired to get patients to the door and provide a level of service. You're not there to make sure tax forms are filled out, or, to do all these other things. So, your time should not be used on staffing issues. It really shouldn't. The other thing is quality workers, right? Like, a lot of these basement agencies, they don't employ anybody, so they don't care who they send, because there's no recourse, there's no pushback, there's nothing. We employ everybody we send. We get regular reviews. We kick people out that think that they're, they walk on water. We hear the attitude problems, we deal with it. But we also fire clients from time to time too, because we get a number of complaints in an office, right? So we'll have to talk to the office and deal with that. Also, canceled days. Like, what does a canceled day cost you? Not only the revenue for the day, but also your patients, right? They are likely, if they get canceled or pushed around too much, they're just going to go to the next person. So what does it cost to acquire a new patient, right? What's the cost of losing them? The time to reschedule. Like, if you don't have a reliable agency that can, and you lose that day of production for those fires that are getting put out, like, the time to reschedule those patients is insane. Like, what would you say, Teresa, to take a whole day and reschedule?
It's a miserable experience. I would probably say we would spend 2 to 3 hours of the day that you could then potentially flip, and you could use it to fill a day, right? And that's if you get a hold of everyone. If some people don't just show up, and then you have to juggle schedules. Or the worst is when you're like, oh, well, it's too short notice, and then you have to, like, juggle the schedule, and you burn out a hygienist because they are now taking on 2 schedules and just scaling all day to make it work, which is what typically a lot of offices will do. They'll just cram it all in and make it work so they don't have to lose it. But if you do that too frequently, we run into a bit of an issue where we burn out the other hygienists, and that's not ideal either. I had a question, Michelle. It said, as a former office manager that had to use temps, what is your screening process to make sure that the temp staff that you're hiring are qualified? It's like, what do you guys do to screen those people so we're getting quality temps coming into the practice?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they are directly employed from us, so we absolutely need to make sure that they've got the credentials, right? What's scary, really scary, with these other basement agencies is because they don't employ them, that we know of major basement agencies that are operating in the country that don't even check if their license is active, and they're sending people in. And so, we can't have that happen. So we have to make sure they're registered. As far as the quality of worker goes, I mean, at the beginning, anybody, no matter what employer you are, you can only do so much. You can do the reference checks, which we will do if they're newer. We'll look at their work history. A lot of the office, we work with so many offices now, we can make a call and get some background on them. But we do that regular checkup at the beginning when we send out a new person to us, to make sure that they are of the caliber and quality that we expect. If there's issues, we try to talk to the worker about it and address it. And if it's unfixable, then we simply part ways. So we have a built-in check and balance, a review process that you can never eliminate bad workers, but it reduces it to a more manageable level. We certainly don't want, to send out bad workers. We don't make any money if we're sending out bad workers. It's simple as that. We don't win at all.
Well, sorry to interject, but there is some balance in that too, because what is bad at one clinic might perfectly suit another. What I've come to realize as you grow.
Yeah, you absolutely. And we've had that. We've sent out workers and they've got fantastic reviews. And then we sent them to another office, and it was like we sent a different worker. And we look into it, and there was a dynamic that plays out between the dentist or the front office manager with that temp, and there's just a massive clash of personalities for whatever reason, and it doesn't matter what work she was doing. She was a biatch, right? Like it doesn't matter, right? So
yeah. It's so true though. Like personality is massive in a practice, vibe, like how they operate, and then what the expectation level is for the hygienist or other temp staff that you're bringing in, RDA, that kind of stuff, what the expectation level is for them and what the expectation level is for the practice. And those don't always mesh either. You know, the longer I've been in dental, the more I realize that, I mean, dentists are obviously very much, we know, are not cookie cutters because they're ran by dentists. 99% of the time, they have their own spin on how they want things to operate, and the staff tend to flatter the dentist. And so, if there's some personality kind of quirks or traits that are stronger in some areas, then everyone's expectation in that area is very high. But then in other areas, it might be very low. And so, the flattering the staff sometimes is a little tricky because I've had like amazing staff members, like just awesome people, and I've had an opening at a clinic and I just think, nope, that's not going to work because the way they operate, the standard in which they operate doesn't mesh with the standard in which that clinic operates, and it could be higher or lower just depending on what's going on, because like you said, there's different levels of sophistication in each practice as well. Like those proactive clinics, they're operating on a different level. The ones that are just building out startups are going to be on a different level than, you know, ones like a 30-year-old practice. You know, ones that are managed really well are going to be operating totally different than ones that have like no office manager. So yeah, there's just lots of different things, that variables that go into that staffing and finding the right person. So yeah,
so
it's a bit of a dating match.
And I do want to quickly, I know I'm done with my slides and presentation, but I do want to mention that we also do permanent staffing, right? And one thing with that, how this ties back to the temp side, and you know what this whole presentation was about, is that I would say that 70 to 80% of the temp workers we send out are actually looking for a better opportunity, and it's such a great way to find talent and to get. You know, we regularly convert temps to permanent opportunities because they go into an office, they love it, office loves them, and that's what they've been looking for. Is they're looking for a new environment. They're looking to fill an extra day here or there because their office isn't open, you know, 4 or 5 days a week, or their doctor takes too many holidays, or whatever it may be. But there's such a huge percentage of temps that would take an offer in the right environment. So it's another thing to consider when using temp staffing is, like, you know, think about when they come in, would this person be a fit? And then talk to us if they're one of ours and say, hey, like, is that person looking for full time? And you give us the details on what your office is looking for. We'll talk to the candidate. We'll make sure there's a nice fit. We'll figure out and expose any problems, any hurdles that need to be, you know, overcome before the marriage takes place, and then, you know, we go from there. So and one last thing, and I'll, you know, we'll do some questions if there's any. You know, for anybody that's watching this, you know, the best way if you want to get a hold of us is just go to our website, workforcedentalstaffing.com, and you know, there's a link there for offices to register. You just fill it out, and then we'll get that information. You'll get a call right away. We'll walk through, you know, all the details, you know, our rate agreement and stuff like that. It doesn't cost anything to sign up. It's just for service, so you only pay if you utilize our temps. But I can certainly tell you that, you know, in a market like Alberta, smaller market, if you are, you know, have the opportunity, a great front office person, backlog of patients, you utilize our proactive staffing approach, and you can pull your office ahead in production every year, just like that office I told you about in Edmonton. So
yeah, it's awesome. Another question was, do clinics deal with the same workforce staff member, like a rep or like for their office, or is it just like a group of reps that you're at workforce that you just like call and deal with?
Yeah, I mean, we try to assign 2 people in our team to an office, and you'll be speaking to 1 or the 2 if you ever had to talk to us. But we have a team that works like all of the time, so there's always somebody to talk to. But you know, your regular reach outs, you'll be usually communicating with 2 people. So
that's amazing. Yeah, it's nice because it's like I like that the customer service aspect on your end is really high, because that's like the whole reason you go to a temp agency is so that you don't have to deal with the crap. And it's like, it's nice. And I know that you guys work really hard at making sure that your clients are well taken care of. And
we really
yeah.
do. I mean, you know, it's remarkable. Like, I give people a challenge, like, try phoning any other temp agency right now and see if they pick up the phone. The answer,
I know.
I already know the answer is no. They're not going to pick it up. But, you know, we will pick it up, right? And we are revamping our systems later this year. We're in the works of it to provide even more like 24/7 service that is really going to, you know, change even what we're supplying right now. So
I love it. And I love that companies like you guys are always looking forward. Like, how do I make this easier for the dentist? How do I make this easier for the office manager? How do we help patient care stay at the same level? And that's like our biggest thing. That's why we find people like you guys, Mike, at Workforce. But like, our study group is all about patient care and keeping the same level of patient care. So the more you can keep some consistency in your practice and keep that level of patient care up, if you can find some predictable people to bring into the practice to do that, to manage that kind of obstacle, which we all know is unpreventable. Sick days unpreventable. So we learned that real hard and fast at COVID. Sick days unpreventable. We know that like vacation days unpreventable. Everyone needs to have vacation. And then we also know that that we can be a bit more proactive and kind of work forward, and it's building these systems in place, is that's like all we do as well, is just build systems, and then you can scale and grow. And if you don't have systems in place that are scalable, then your clinic is going to stay capped at where it is, and it's just kind of repeats this frustrating cycle. And we all don't want to, you know, repeat frustrating cycles. We want to kind of grow and manage and feel like we're in control of our business or our practice or anything that we're doing in life, because no one likes to be in chaos management all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not a great place to be. So thank you so much for coming on, Mike. Is there any other questions? I'll just put it out to the group. If there's any other questions, then we can. It doesn't look like it. So I know that you put up your page to reach you at your website there, but we'll link it on the YouTube page as well when it goes back out and broadcast. We'll take you in socials as well. Just make sure that your company information is on there. But we really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening away from your family to come talk to us and teach us a little bit more. I know if you guys have more questions, Mike's definitely very educated, and you can reach out to him, because we chat all the time about stuff, and I've vetted him personally for quite some time, and so he gets it. He knows what's up, and I appreciate people in our industry that are like honest and frank and are willing to just help you work through these situations the best way possible. So thank you for being genuine and having a great company that's flattering to the industry.
Thanks, Teresa.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. And again, this will be posted out, and we look forward to the next one. Before everyone leaves, I just wanted to make an announcement. We finally have launched our remote recare, and you can find more information about that on our website now. It's been updated. It went live today. We're super excited about it. So if you're having trouble building up enough momentum and enough patience so that you need a temp, remote recare can help with that. We have office managers, and we're bringing on really high trained staff. They're going to make calls on your clinic's behalf. We know that's shorthanded when you can't get a temp, or maybe you're not in the cash flow area where you're able to hire someone, even hire a temp person to get those calls out. You need to build up demand in business. That's where we can help kind of build that for you guys. So if you need someone to do that, then we're happy to help out. And you can, again, check it out at optimizeddental.ca and then look under remote recare. So Hope you guys have a great night. Thanks again for coming out, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, take care.